Donald J. Trump is calling for a total and complete shutdown of Muslims entering the United States until our country's representatives can figure out what the hell is going on.
People are asking that same question now about Donald Trump's suggestion. He united Republicans, party leaders, political opponents, all in the notion of rejecting the idea of banning Muslims. They say not only is it a bad idea, it may make us less safe. Why? Let's discuss. Democratic Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard of Hawaii, a member of the House Armed Services and Foreign Affairs Committees, also an Iraq War vet, who believes our efforts to unseat Syrian President Assad do more harm than good as well. We will get to that topic. Always good to see you, Congresswoman. So what do you make of this, the idea of banning Muslims?
Good to see you, Chris. Good morning. Aloha. It's clear what Donald Trump is doing. He is trying to exploit people's fears for his own political purpose. So I think it's important for us to look at where are these fears coming from, these unfounded, generalized fears of all Muslims. It's really coming from the failure of leaders in our country to make this distinction between the vast majority of Muslims and this small minority who are practicing or embracing this radical Islamic ideology, also known as Islamism. This ideology that is really a totalitarian political ideology that says some form of Islam should be the governing doctrine over society or government. So that's why this distinction is so important.
Right, but he says it's a distinction without a difference. He says one can be too many, and you can call it Islamism if you want, but it's still got that word Islam in there, so that means you're dealing with the universe of Muslims, so let's just keep them all out. That's his idea.
That's a dangerous perspective to push forward because without that distinction, that is really what is fueling this fear, and it's the failure of recognizing and identifying who our enemy is and the ideology that's driving it that brings us to this point where we're seeing these attacks continue. For example, if you look at the shooters in California, if you had recognized that this Islamist ideology is what is driving the San Bernardino killers, ISIS, Al-Qaeda, and these different attacks that are taking place, then you would have looked at Miss Malik. You would have looked at the fact that in the past she had been taught at these madrasas that are known for radicalizing young girls and women. You would have looked at that past that really indoctrinates people and radicalizes them with this Islamist ideology, this political totalitarian ideology.
Right. I mean, look, I understand your point that it trickles down to the practical and how you effectuate your security programs, but I think this is a bigger moment that we're having here right now, what you spoke to originally. What is America about? America is scared right now. America is, on many levels, apparently acting out of fear. Who needs to step up and give the counter notion to what Donald Trump just said? Because that's a form of leadership as well. Silence will not fill a vacuum.
I think it's leaders within the Muslim community absolutely need to step up and help to make this distinction between the vast majority of Muslims who preach and who embrace the ideals of freedom of religion and of tolerance and of separation of mosque and state. But it's also the political leaders here within our own country who need to make that distinction that clearly differentiates the vast majority of Muslims from this minority of Islamists who are continuing to push forward this ideology that we find in ISIS, that we find in Al-Qaeda, and that is driving the threat to Americans, to the United States, and to the West.
All right, now you are fighting this fight on this level, but also a different one as well. That's a little subtle, but deserves attention. You're saying the war against Bashar al-Assad, the putative leader of Syria, is illegal because no war was declared, which is something that's often ignored in political circles these days, but is also counterproductive to fighting ISIS. How so, and what's going on with your bill to stop the Assad war funding?
Well, look, Chris, just recently, Secretary Kerry said that we could defeat ISIS in 3 months if the civil war in Syria is ended. I agree with him. This is why I've been so strongly advocating for us to end this illegal counterproductive war, to overthrow the Syrian government of Assad. First, if we allow this to continue and this objective is reached, if Assad is overthrown, this will open up the door for ISIS and Al-Qaeda and these other groups to walk in the front door and increase their capabilities, their military capabilities, take ownership over all of Syria and present an even greater threat to the world. Secondly, we've got to look at the head-to-head conflict that is existing right now between the U.S. and Russia because of this focus on the overthrow of Assad. The United States is advocating for the overthrow of the Syrian government of Assad, and Russia is working to maintain that government. That is putting us at a direct head-to-head conflict with Russia that could potentially lead to something very devastating, even a nuclear war or something of a world war consequence.
Keep us informed on what's happening with the bill. It certainly deserves debate in this current climate. Tulsi Gabbard, thank you very much, as always.
Thanks, Chris.
All right. Mick, over to you.
Well, the outrage over Donald Trump's call to ban Muslims in America.
I'm the leading state sponsor of terrorism.